The idea of stage one is to capture all of the information from the point that it starts with a single person all the way through. Go to the idea portal in ServiceNow and we're going to create an idea and show how the collaboration can get extra comments put onto it at that point. It also has a voting feature that you can vote it up or down. This way your peers can collaborate on that idea more with you before we get ready to turn that into a demand. At the point it becomes a demand, you made a commitment to at least a small investment in order to vet that demand. After the demand is processed and the demand is approved, and we're going to fast track that for this demonstration, that goes through and it actually turns into a project where a project manager such as Paul Martin is assigned. During this demonstration, we're going to switch between two screens. On the right hand side, you'll see this is Julie Lewis, and Julie Lewis is going to be our end user that's submitting her new idea. On the other side, we'll look at our project manager, who is Paul Martin. In this case, we're going to assume Paul Martin is also processing the demand for the project that comes in. The way that we want these to start, all of these projects, is to come in through our idea portal. And that gives us an opportunity to do some vetting on the idea in the public space, just like an email would be as people are added to an email chain. But we also want to be able to deduplicate efforts. So what I can do here is first see, is there anything else going on with electronic health records? Something came up with our AI search called HIPAA compliance, but that doesn't really meet my needs. So what I can do instead of elaborating on an existing idea is I want to create a new idea. And I want to create an idea for electronic health records. And then I can go ahead and categorize that to wherever I need. So we're going to do product enhancement around electronic health records. Here I'd be able to elaborate on that within a description, and I can go ahead and create that. The idea here would be that this idea goes in and gets vetted by multiple people. Multiple people would be able to come in, and I'm going to switch over to my other user now and actually work on this queue. I'm going to switch over now, and I'm going to say Paul Martin wants to go in and look at those ideas in the public space. So what Paul Martin's able to do is come in, and Paul Martin's able to see all of the information that's in here. They can see there's an electronic health record and it's submitted. And I can come in here just like any other end user, and I'd be able to comment on this back and forth to Julie. I'd be able to add my comments in there. And I'd also be able to vote it up, or I could vote it down. And the idea here, over time, this will get a lot of votes by all of the different end users, and I'd be able to get a good batch of information that would let me start my business case from here. Once Paul Martin has enough information on this idea and he's satisfied that they want to promote it from an idea, if I want to change the status of the idea, I can look at it in the platform, and that would bring me into the record. And I could change this from submitted, and I could say under review. Well, once I move it to under review, because I'm Paul Martin, I'm able to do this. Once I move it into under review, I can go ahead and create a task for it. The demand is the type of task I want to create. So I'll say, okay, let's go ahead and create a demand. This will go ahead and move that into the backlog, and it'll create a corresponding demand record for it. Now Paul Martin can go straight from here, because he's the product manager, into that demand record, and we can start working on that directly at this point. Demands have a long life cycle, because what will happen is the demand will work into either a portfolio and get approved through a portfolio, or it'll go through a number of steps, including screening, qualified, and there'll be different stakeholders along the way. At this point, we're going to say it's a strategic project, and we're going to go ahead and say we want to, don't add it to a portfolio right now. We're going to save that for later, but it's something we certainly could do. We can also apply some light financials on here. So if we want to say it's going to be $100,000, and again, we're just ballparking here because it's the demand, and it's going to be $40,000. The additional things that can happen here is assessments. So when I go ahead and submit this demand, depending on the department that the demand belongs to, it will now send out to a series of stakeholders. We'll get surveys and ask to go ahead and review the business case that was brought over from the idea and see if it warrants being promoted. Or on the assessments, it'll actually go ahead and it'll assess the risk, the value. You could customize these surveys that go out as well. We would move it to screening. Screening would bring more stakeholders in to do a progressive elaboration. If you want to, we could have a qualification stage. And at the end of the qualification stage, we're going to go ahead and say, let's approve the electronic health record. At the point the electronic health record is approved to execute, we can create a project for it. And then that project is where we can pick up on stage 2. The other thing that we can do before we move this is I can click on PAL required. In some cases, you may want to have a special requirement if the project's over a certain size. At this point, because Paul Martin is vetting this record, and you can see that it's $140,000, he'll know that it might have to go through the PAL stage. In the case of California, they have a process called PAL. They require certain fields to be filled out before the demand can be promoted into a project. That concludes our stage 1 presentation. Please join me for stage 2.